there's, been a lot of focus and attention put on the Great Migration of Black Southerners to the North.
Yeah.
And, there's Smithsonian has a whole section on that. And there's been, in other words, it's a theme that the teaching and presenting of history has tried to shine a light on. But that's, in a sense, a direct consequence of immigration policy. You slow down immigration, the Great Migration to the cities of the North is the inevitable consequence of that. And yet that's almost never really discussed in that context.
The immigration aspect is not hidden, but it is really subtle.
Even though its effect isn't subtle, it's talked about subtly.
It's talked about subtly, and I think it's a key part of history that Americans need to understand. It's that, as many people said, the civil rights successes of the 60s could not have happened without the mass migration of African Americans into the West and the North. That, for all kinds of reasons, that had to happen. And that mass migration could not have happened until the North and the West opened up because they needed black labor. So the reduction of immigration in 1924 made all that possible. Now, Isabel Wilkerson has won a Pulitzer Prize and so made herself rich on that amazing book, The Warmth of Other Suns, where she interviewed, I think, over 1,000 of these people who had, in the 90s, the people who'd been part of the Great Migration. And she's telling their stories. But in that book, there are a few places in which it's absolutely clear that the Great Migration was kicked off by the end of mass migration. So even in that book, which is I would say, accepted across the spectrum and is extremely well received in the more liberal community of America, recognizes that. But it is kind of lost in there, because there's so much there. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to do with this book is, look, Mark, I am not a trained historian. I'm a trained journalist. I did not do primary research other than some journalistic work that I've done along the way, but where I've gone to places. But what I did was to pull paragraphs, sentences, pages that are scattered in dozens and dozens of work by top-notch historians some of the historians go back over 100 years that are pulled from, to pull all of that together into one narrative, which I believe it's one of the things you do. As Frank Morris told me, says, actually, Roy, that is scholarship, taking from everybody else. I think for the reader, it's a chance to just read something that just continues one narrative all the way through. And you see that I think that people who are not African American can also see in this the story of their families too.